All right. Says we're live. Finally got the setup going on. Here we are, viewers. As promised, we're in the garage. Live for the first time ever. On the beloved YouTube. So, wanted to bring this into fruition so that I could get some of the, I don't know, just give you a better feel. A lot of the edited videos that I was doing had a bunch of stuff that I had to cut out of them because I just didn't feel like I had the time. I couldn't load them properly, stuff like that. But in doing the sim racing thing, I kind of figured out what live streaming could do for me as far as this is concerned. Because you're here with me and you get to get, you know, some real good accurate descriptions and stuff. You get to see me actually doing it, some of the tools and techniques that I use, if it even matters to you. So without further ado, let's get back to the roots of this channel. I didn't want to take it too far away from RC stuff with the sim racing thing because this whole thing was just kind of chase down some motorsports and show the kiddos how much work goes into developing a channel, content. You're kind of everybody. Director, janitor, IT guy, engineer, all that kind of stuff. So, a little video a while ago showing some of the projects, like the project roster we have for this year. I'm going to start off doing this live stream, doing some repairs. Some stuff that just kind of comes apart while you're driving. That way you can kind of get familiarized. Also, I'd like to kind of really start off with getting you familiarized with the differences between what I do in RC and what normal people might do. Because I jumped into this right in the middle of some pretty deep rabbit holes. I'll give you an example. Over here, this is what I would consider as a generic basher. It's four-wheel drive. It's a truck. It's called a Red Cat Volcano. It's 1/10 scale. It shows up at your door for like 150, 160 bucks. Comes with a battery and a charger that'll take a few hours and kind of be annoying. Usually, I switch to a charger like this. They're about 25 bucks. I think way back in the day, I was getting it for like 12 bucks, 18 bucks. But I do all my shopping on eBay, so you can catch more deals, I feel. I'm not going to knock any of the online sales places because I pay Amazon for Prime every month. We do it mostly for the streaming stuff, but if we can find some stuff on there that we buy, you know, we do. Usually I buy everything from eBay just because I can find all the parts a little bit easier and more of a selection when I search. If I want to search for something specific, but I don't know necessarily what it's called, I can kind of put in more generic terms into eBay's search field. That's the way I feel. So either way, back to the Red Cat. 150 bucks gets it in the door. Comes with a battery. It's like a 2000 mAh. Not really enough to me. I kind of like a 3500. I went through this whole stick battery thing, trying to figure out who's best. I got a lot of Fluorion batteries. It seems like their stick batteries kind of held up pretty good. I know Venom's pretty solid. If I'm not mistaken, somewhere in here would have been some Hexfly stuff, which is kind of what it shows up as. I have an Onyx one there. There's one of the Hexflies that come with the Red Cat as standard. I'm not a professional on this stuff. I'm just an auto mechanic that's got tools and I know how to stick stuff together. So a lot of times I'll walk myself into problems that I didn't even know I shouldn't have. So beware. For example, somebody I know bought one of these recently, wanted to get into things. I said, yeah, great, go ahead, and sent him a link for a battery because I knew that the regular battery was going to be a little bit drab, takes too long to charge. or it takes a while, and you get to cycle it one time every few hours to, you know, with the charging. So I said, well, buy an extra battery so you can kind of cycle them. I totally spaced out that everything of mine. You see how it's got butt connectors and Dean's connectors on them. And again, there may be people out there that would freak that I'm using butt connectors. This stuff will run, you know, you find butt connectors on starter motors. This is like hundreds of amps. So I'm not worried about it, but other people may be. I was more worried about the slide fit of the Dean's connector as opposed to the clip connector of the original. Let's see. Your original Tamiya style connectors have this little hook. Well, more often than not on automotive style connectors, the only difference between these and the automotives is the weather pack seals. So it's got rubber seals in it and they call it a weather pack. But they still carry amperage, they carry load, and once the connection's made, it's all happiness and wonderment. That's how your car runs, is on shit like this. And butt connectors. But on these little cars, efficiency is much more critical, I believe. Ultimately, I haven't really received a great big loss in any of the butt connected systems that I use, which are literally everywhere. Well, this one's probably easier to show. TRF car, 17 turn, Kyosho Le Mans motor control. This thing runs like a scalded ape, and it does just fine. But weather sealed butt connectors, they're heat shrink with the little glue inside of them, all sexy. But there you have it. I kind of accidentally set somebody up for failure because I didn't remember that I had went through this big connector conundrum right from the very beginning. And because I was rocking so many different various chassis, I just standardized them all. You see, various different variables come in for what you're choosing, why you're choosing it. Usual regular stuff like this, I wouldn't necessarily suggest moving to a LiPo battery. Even though you see on the motor control, let's see if you can see this. These little things here, they're little plastic tabs. They pull out, and on this sticker here, they'll give you reverse on or off, battery, LiPo, or nickel metal hydride. I run this thing on LiPos. It's the factory motor control and motor, which are now post-toasted after the last snow run that we had. It's been 2.5 years of steady bashing, and this thing's taken many, many, many impacts that it shouldn't have. Overall, it's a solid truck. The only thing that I've had to do to it, motor control don't stick because of the regular sticky stuff gets dirt and it's done. So I just zip tie everything to wherever it's going to go, or I will super glue it or JB weld it in place. I know it's a little bit serious, but my stuff's made for permanency and hardcore use. A lot of the screws that come with them, I'm trading them out for screw sets that are hardened metric. They're M3 10.9 steel. You can see them. They're actually marked. I don't know if this camera is going to pick that up. They're marked. Trust me. They're stamped on the end, but they're steel and they add weight, which is a detriment to the car's performance. But the strength is, well, it's steel. So I used it on a lot of stuff. This truck in particular took too many hits to the steering, to the front. I didn't put people in a good position to drive in an open area. Do not try to learn in a closed off area with any obstacles unless you really like learning how to rebuild one of these. And I don't care what brand it is, because this is the very expensive version of what they call Basher. It's an Axial Yeti, and you can see that it does great at bashing. But it can be broken as well if you're stupid and give it to somebody who thinks, well, no, I can drive, and they really don't understand it. It's just too closed in, too many obstacles. So don't do that. $20 servo off of eBay. 20 kilograms, heaviest thing I could find for the cheapest. Couple of nice aluminum end links and an aluminum servo arm. And basically hooking this thing up, it should have a spring-loaded bell crank right here. You can't really see it very well. But this thing's usually on the factory version, has a spring in it to where it allows things to be hit. But if you whack that too many times, it kind of wears everything out. And rather than replacing it with the factory stuff, I just went with the solid stuff. So if somebody smacks something hard enough, it just bends one of the tie rods or pops one of those knuckles or the ball ends off, which is the usual. It'll either pop it out of this outer knuckle here, this little plastic piece here. It'll rip the tie rod end out of it, or it'll pop this plastic ball end off of its metal ball, which is fine. You just pop it back on. One of the other ones, here's an upgrade to these trucks, which I kind of find critical. When you first get into this truck, down here where the motor mount is, these down here is where your bolts are. So there's your motor, there's your mount, this aluminum block. Bolts go in this way. Gear mesh side to side. So your main gear and your spur gear here that I'm spinning, you can kind of see those moving. Those are steel now, hardened steel. The plastic that they came with, fired it up, took it for a drive. It was awesome. Drove it for 15 or 20 minutes, and the screws that hold the motor solid loosened up. As soon as those loosened up, the plastic gears ate the shit out of each other, and it was over with. And I said, wow, that happened so quick. It must have just been like a manufacturing deal. They just didn't get the screws tight enough. I don't know if it was something that we did, but I know it's something that happened. And for 23 or 25 bucks, these steel gears do a lot better job if you're not quite that good at setting gear gap and all that kind of stuff. So definitely an upgrade I would consider. The steering, had I done it now, I might have tried to keep it a little bit more stock with the buffering in it. Now that I understand that kind of steering a little bit better from having experience on this truck. And you'll notice that this truck comes as factory with a Dean's connector on it. So much more hardcore vehicle, much more expensive. So that's kind of where I ended up standardizing all those connectors, was trying to get into what was the normal use for guys that I may have to have a conversation for because I went a little too extreme on my cars. But that basically on the Red Cat end of things is the only thing that we have done. Fixing the steering when it got broken, obviously replacing the servo when the gears got sheared off from impact. Simple driver error, not the truck. And the only thing I could really suggest to somebody is go out and find these metal gears, because when it comes down to rocks and dirt and debris, you can see this thing's just wide open. So ultimately, I think that's probably a good start for somebody to get into bashing. It's not too expensive, and it lasts a good long time. And at some point or another, I don't know where it disappeared to, but there's a motor that in our collection has become very, very popular because of its just rugged simplicity, ease of replacement, the cheapness of it. The only one that I have close is this truck right here. If you can see in here, this motor right here is one of the brushless, sensorless motors. It's just a 3-wire motor. It's a sealed can. This one actually I got for $18. It's a 3000 kV motor. If you don't know, apparently the kV system is 1000 revolutions per volt. So if you have 3000 kV, Yeah, well, I'm just thinking about that. Yeah, you're going to have 7.2 volts, or just call it, a charged LiPo battery is 8 volts. So you're going to have 3,000 times 8, which is approximately a 24,000 RPM motor. Those little motors are like $18, $20, $30 a piece. The motor controls that I use for them range in complexity, but mostly they are, see, you see that silver can motor in there? That motor control is it's a Castle Sidewinder version 2 that I got used off of eBay for like 30 bucks. The motor itself is the Surpass Hobby 3000 kV version. And the only water intrusion that you're going to find in these things, the problem, that's the only problem they have, is right through this connector. You're going to see water and sand get down in there. That's why the Toyota I just showed you does not have this same motor. It used to. I had to go with the Black Magic one because I roached it at Lake McConaughey, I believe. Going through the water, soaked in a bunch of sand and dirt, and then it sat there and rusted and clogged up the motor and did bad things. So my point is this: they are sealed up, so for dirt use and bashing use, they're really excellent. They keep everything out of the motor. The motor controls themselves, you can get fairly cheap. $70 or $80 will get you a nice Castle Sidewinder brand new. So for a $100 upgrade, now granted, the manufacturers are not stupid. If you want to skip that, you can get the brushless for like 240 bucks. So it's like cheaper to buy this as brushless first, but recognize the difference. These things are very quick in brushless with LiPo batteries. It makes a huge difference. So starting off in just some regular stuff, and you see this thing's, it's been thumped on, but it still works. I can hook it up right now and turn it on. It'll still drive. We just got some brushes wearing out. And if I just wanted to do the motor, this motor's like 15 or 20 bucks. So it's not bad, and the motor control still works. So we'll probably end up just doing this motor. Ultimately, if I wanted to spice this thing up, I already tried it with a 3000 kV motor and a Castle Sidewinder motor control. It did just fine. It was really hairy. It was very fast. So the run out on these big tall tires is quick. So just remember that. Other than that, as far as like a good, cheap, economical basher, it's okay. The body it comes with is, it's like somebody described a Ford Raptor over the phone. So don't expect much. So there is a little bit on Red Cat and some basic bashing stuff. We're gonna shift gears back to where I live. The basic stuff isn't it for me. I kind of got into this because I wanted motorsports, and what I saw was watching Top Gear and rally and stuff like that. I saw rally cars. So I thought that would be a great place to start, and for me it was. It's a very technical drive, and it's a very technical company that I'm dealing with. It's called Tamiya. They're Japanese. It's a radio-controlled model. So to start you off on the right side of the rabbit hole, know for a fact this is not for bashing unless you spend a lot of money. And even then, you go one step over the boundary, it breaks, and you better buy some parts. You went past the physics of the engineering. So sorry, Charlie. So what we have to deal with today, as I was out driving, we have a track right outside. We turned our whole backyard into the track because we didn't want to waste water. And this is more fun than grass. So this is my little Lancia 037. It's a Tamiya TA02SW, I believe. And when you get into it, it's that. So if you're looking to buy whatever you're looking to buy, that's the model that this is. Usually, well, they only made one version. Okay. So what you see on the cover there is the Martini Racing World Champion winning. This is the only two-wheel drive vehicle that beat the four-wheel drive vehicles in the World Rally Championship ever. All right. That's why they made this. You want to know why this weird-looking little Italian thing? It was able to smoke all of the four-wheel drives. Now, when I say smoke, you got to realize there's some backstory. They were playing games, all right? Like running fleets of these things, like bringing ice melt to the French rallies, like changing tires in the middle of the rally. They did a lot of hinky shit back then, but they still won the championship, so whatever. And Audi broke a lot, so... Anyway... The driver of this car was named Walter Rohrl. He's a German guy, and he's like one of the best drivers of all history. For me, I bought a spare that had no body parts or decals for 20 bucks because I knew it was a hard body. It's not the same. See my wife's Skyline? See, it's all clear and flimsy. This is like a model body, okay? See, it's all like you would glue it together, but this one bolts together, all right? You have to sand stuff. You have to like do actual body work to it. So yeah, I knew that was going to happen because I'd read up on it. I'm so smart. So when I bought the kit, it came with the body, and forgive the dust, I'm still doing the body work. I've had this for 6 months. Some of it looks okay. I don't know if you can see any of it. It's starting to come around. But instead of doing the Martini Racing version, what I've done, and I don't have them up here anymore because I didn't want them to get ruined, I ordered some decals for a 1/18th scale car from France. They are, if you know anything about rally back in the day, Lancia used a team that was professionals, but like a works team that wasn't a factory team. They were called the Jolly Club. And sometimes I guess maybe they would have been factory teams for some of the brands, but I don't necessarily claim to know the relationship. I just know that they ran Jolly Club cars. Usually they were toe tip, little green and orange kind of thing. You'll see a lot of the videos of the toe tip cars running right alongside the Martini cars. One of the more unknowns was the Jolly Club in, I can't remember, I think it was the French rally, Tour de Corsa maybe, in '84. And it was, I mean, same kind of sponsorship package, but a much more basic sticker pack. Hell, let me see. I hate describing stuff, but since I'm live, I get to just sit here and jabber at you and like show it to you. Hopefully. No. Nope. Well, let's see. Nope, not there. What the hell happened to all my decals? Ah. Maybe if we're lucky, I'll be able to find the decals in this bag. I should be able to find them. But let's just say that they're freaking... They had to come direct from France. They did not understand what I was talking about when I said, hey, I'd like to have them in 1/10 scale. That was like, well, it was like we were speaking different languages. So I was just grateful when I got them. Of course, I got everything in its brother except for those sliding around here. Oh, that was what they were. They were Benetton. That's why they were so fancy and special to me, because I was going to do a Benetton Jolly Club 037, and it actually ran at one of these races way back in the day. As that car, I can't remember the driver or anything, but definitely kind of a cool, different look. I'm not actually finding that anywhere. I must have hid that really good for myself. Really didn't want to ruin that one, I guess. Oh well, I'll find it at some point, stuffed around here somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, because I've got the I've got a Benetton B194 Formula One car that I thought was pretty damn cool. That I'm still building, actually. So weird. All right, well, I can't find that, but I've described it, I think, to a little bit of too much of a point. So let's just move on and get these basics and repairs done. So, as I was talking about before, we got a track right out back. Its range is between 275 feet and about 400 feet. Narrow stuff, some tabletops, wide stuff, drifty corners, dips, lots of nice terrain. When you're driving these cars, you got to understand you're putting them under a really exorbitant amount of force. You're taking it to the max all the time, especially when you're off-road with rally. That is very punishing to these things. Usually, one of the first things that has to get upgraded, and it hasn't been on this car yet, is, let's see if you can get a good view of it even. Right here. This little arm and little cross pin pieces, which are your steering. Usually those will crack and break. You can see right here the outer edges of these blue knuckles. Where the ball end meets in there, it'll crack, it'll split straight out. Just from impact related stuff. Also, an interesting little fun fact is that these vehicles, at least this particular model, the TA02 series, of which I have several. Matter of fact, I've got another chassis coming in. And all right, so you saw what I just did. I just popped off that right rear. We picked up some stickage, some cordage. You see? So as you're driving, these things are freaking just literally tearing it up, trying to grab a hold of everything. When you pull this off, kind of hold your hand underneath here. Your cross pins will be trying to come out. Usually anybody that's screwballing around with a Tamiya knows exactly what the hell is going to happen to them because they've had to build it themselves. And then you recognize the points at which, okay, it's maybe going to need some Loctite or some other stuff. Now, because this one's basically factory, basically everything in this car is stock. I wanted to see this model as standard so that I could kind of get familiar with how it should be. Because to tell you the truth, before I bought this kit, I had never owned a brand new one. All of them have been strays that I bought off of eBay. There's my channel's deep, dark secret, kids. I bought people's stuff that they got tired of or didn't want anymore and said, well, look at you. Maybe I can make something cool out of you. So most of my stuff, that's why I don't have a problem with modifying it, because I buy it used. And it's usually already done kind of incorrectly anyway. Like, case in point, this truck, anybody that knows about what Tamiyas are will know that this truck represents an extremely rare run of just a Ford F-150 Baja truck. I say extremely rare. I don't know how many they made of them. Probably thousands, but they're very rare now. Well, when I got the truck, it was painted blue and yellow, which is completely wrong. The truck was white, red, and then some blue, I think. And all of the stickers, the factory BF Goodrich and Ford officially licensed stickers that they had, they put it on the skin that peels off of the body. The protective layer that they put to protect the body from scratches so that you can properly apply the paint from the underside and then the stickers to the outside after you peel the layer off. Well, they applied this goofy-ass paint job and then put the stickers, officially licensed, very hard to get, can't get them anymore, put the stickers on the outside of the protective layer and basically ruined all of them. You can't peel them back up off of that crap. It's like putting like a heavy gauge vinyl sticker on saran wrap. What the hell are you going to do with it now? So they ruined it. Well, I paid like $150 for the truck and just started upgrading it, updating it, and changing things around to the way that I wanted them to be. And now it's got a 16-turn brushless Tamiya motor with sensor. It's got the Tamiya, kind of the TB, what is that? TBLE02S. It's their cheapest version of a motor control. I always put, I don't know if you can see them in there. Right there, yep, you can see them flashing around at you. Yeah, the two little round things in there that I'm pointing at. Those are capacitors. I get like $12 for those. And it really does help. It helps the performance and the freaking, just their overall off-the-line performance, really. Of course, you see this one, aluminum bead locks. And these are actual bolting aluminum bead locks with some nice all-terrain tires. These, with the size and the run out and the extra weight, can cause you some serious problems if you have the axles locked up, for example, other kinds of stuff. But I've modified the crap out of this truck. The bumper here is from a Losi High Roller. Okay, this is my little boy's truck. I was building it for him, and he's a little bit not as much of a driver as it needs, so it's waiting. But yeah, I mean, if you see stuff and you're one of those collector types that say, why are you modifying this stuff? Just be warned, I'm usually buying people's strays. So I don't feel like it's a bad thing to modify it. Here we are back into this little lovely subject. You can kind of see these rims, how they're bashed up on the edges, but there's something pretty unique about them. They're bead locks. They're plastic bead locks. And if you take a look at the kit itself, it's not in there right now. Let me see where I've got them stuffed down into. There they go. These are the rims that the 037 runs in real life. Well, I mean, the model of them, right? So they're plastic, they're non-bead lock. When you glue them, you're going to get glue on the sidewalls of the tires. It looks like ugly. And when you go to slide this thing in a full drift at speed, you're going to get a bunch of crap down here in the bead. The bead of the tire just gets full and it ends up ripping the tire off of the rim. Well, you've just used up your one shot at gluing it on a nice clean surface, so best of luck with your sandpaper, and I hope you don't get through the chrome. Or we're going to toss those down there, never talk about them again, except for like a shelf model, and we're going to go online and we're going to go use the off-roader's trick of putting them on a bead lock. So as you can see, these little $10 directional kind of rally-esque tires. I'm not going to say they're rally tires. They were kind of billed as an all-season or an on-road, but these are got a really nice tread pattern. You can see the chop to them. Get great traction, especially for a low-rise vehicle, but the bead lock is the important part. Clamps onto the tire. holds the tire to the rim very, very effectively. Occasionally, you may need, this is your guy. It's 222, or you can look for 222 MS. And here, just so you don't get uncomfortable, any new viewers, we'll just go ahead. There you go. You see? Now it's 222 MS. What this is purple Threadlocker. I don't know if you can just go any brand in purple, but it's low strength. You see? Purple. It's for 4 millimeters and under, and it's a very low strength anaerobic sealer, which means that it doesn't glue shit together with air. Like, it can't open air glue things. Okay? Anaerobic means lack of air. Just a tiny dot. Look. You see? Just a little bitty bit. Why? Because some of these will spin and unlock the lock nut. When you're doing extended stud type installations, where it's got a big, huge lug nut right in the middle, and it looks like this. Okay, so this just goes into the axle and goes like that here. Sorry about all this crazy stuff. I'm kind of new to this camera angle, and I'm having to look sideways at the screen because the screen's way the hell over there, like way up there. So I'm having to look way at a weird angle to get a right view. I've got a mount for the screen coming so that it can kind of put it in a more overhead position, and maybe even like right there. It's weird to have just that little tiny angle. But anyway, so as you see, we cleared the debris from this side. And now, I don't know if you can see that very well. You see all the dirt and crap clogging up in there? That's the only place you're going to have very much grease at all, is inside that little gearbox. All of the gears are plastic. Or, well, not all of the gears are plastic. A lot of the gears in these are plastic. You see? One twist. Some of you may be asking, what in the heck happened? What just went down? Why did this thing come apart like that? It looks like the whole wheel came off with the suspension. And indeed it did. What we have here, cool. We didn't get too much down in there. What we have is a little upper control arm here. This little guy. And you see it there up against my finger. There's a chunk of it. It's just a little piece of plastic bent in a shape or cast in a shape. Screw goes through here. Here's the other end. Screw goes through there. All right. Wheel and tire assembly comes up because it's located on the bottom control arm here where the shock is. You see? So as it folds up, you see there's your suspension. You see? So there's it. There's his arm. Okay. There's a better camera angle for you. All right. So as the arm goes in, it's got to have that screw. And now you can see where the problem comes through. This is the side that at some point, as it's wearing out, it's turning the screw like just a little bit. So, boop, that comes out. Arm flops off. Screw falls out. Axle dog bone comes flipping out of the axle cup. You see? There's your axle shaft. So this is like your CV axle. your constant velocity axle in your Toyota or whatever you're driving. I don't know what the hell you're driving, but it's got some axles like this. But this one's just a little bitty tiny baby one that they call a dog bone. You have another something or another called a drive cup. There you go. Drive cup. It's got splines. You'll notice. Yes. It's a spline shaft. That spline shaft goes in that tiny little hole in there. It lines up stuff and things. Okay. And you can see by turning this. Okay, so while driving, while doing rally, this is just one of the normal things that happens, particularly to this model, and in particular while it's in stock format. Why? Well, because I haven't put any tire, like actual ball ends on it, and I haven't sealed it off the way that other things would be. What do you mean? Let's take you for a ride in the hardcore, or what I consider to be the hardcore rally version of one of my cars. It's got the super Leggera body, no lights, no weird harnesses, no weird anything else. And you'll see this one is immediately starting to look a little bit different. You'll notice that there's one heck of a lot more stuff going on in this car. One major thing. Let's see till you get the right angle. There it is. Okay. Whoop. That way. These ball ends right here. You see how they're bolted in and Loctited into the knuckle? You can't get those to come out. They can't break and come off. You understand? It's locked into place as if it was going off-road and you couldn't have it come off. These little things are in factory mode so they can just wiggle out and undo themselves. Why don't I put Loctite on it? Because I don't like undoing bolts out of plastic that have Loctite in them. It really sucks. So every once in a while, you'll be driving and you'll see the entire characteristic of the way the car handles change. It'll start to get real wobbly in the butt and it'll look like it's dragging its ass along the ground. And then all of a sudden, this will flop over and the axle will pop out, and then you go for a walk and find your parts. Later on down the road, when this thing gets fully upgraded, aluminum knuckles, aluminum arms, better shocks, aluminum upper A arms, or just basically you swap these out to tie rod ends and build your own control arms. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, these two vehicles are exactly the same, only they're not the same. I think you can tell that. See any similarities? They're the same chassis. Except the Toyota here has been extremely modified. And I almost ripped out my precious little headlights trying to hurry. I don't need to hurry. You see? It's the same kind of chassis, but this one I've got a carbon fiber upper and lower deck. It's inverted. The steering solenoid, it's made rally steering out of it. So it's got a much wider steering path. So it can handle a lot bigger tires. I put a lift kit on the front of it, but ultimately, you can see here, tie rod ends. This one's also got a way early trick that I was using that you can't really see very well because I'm not doing very good at the camera angle. I'm new, trying to get you the right view, but it ain't working. I wonder. See the tie rod end? Kinda. Here. That's a ball end stuck through a hole. But essentially, my point is this. The factory ones will start to undo themselves just naturally. And I'm going to be doing, the reason why I'm pointing this one out is because I have an axle back here. It's this one. Yeah. See? That axle shaft is broke, so I have to get that replaced. I usually stock these things. I got a whole couple of trays over here that have got plenty of parts for that sort of thing. What I need to do now is grab, this is where bolt bucket really helps you. It's going to be a shouldered self-tapping screw. It's got a stepped shoulder to it. You can go to the manual and find it, because Tamiya manuals are extremely well sorted out. They give you everything you need. But you see how it has this big shoulder at the top and then threads at the bottom? That shoulder is the bearing surface that goes here. You see? So, so now you see how that's kind of tied in there. So when you're moving it, you see, and that popped right back out because they didn't have the screw in there necessarily. But you get the drift of what I'm trying to do. That's why they have a shoulder in there, because it's the bearing surface that actually allows it to turn. And you probably say, well, why does it actually? Because you get dust and dirt in that hole, whether you want to or not. So it just naturally turns and loosens up, which isn't really that big of a deal. If you're using it under controlled circumstances, like a track that you own, it's very easy to deal with. I can see it being not so good for people that don't have their own track facilities, because you wouldn't necessarily be able to just say, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to take a walk around the whole track for half an hour and look for my parts. So use that as kind of a baseline. If you're going out other places, you want this stuff to be rock solid. You don't want to have to be dealing with rinky-dinky stuff coming apart. So either modify it to suit, or if you're an originalist, be prepared. Put a little dab of this on there, and I can't imagine it's going to hurt you. And of course, I think we're on to... Oh, another thing. Don't forget, in this little piece right here, there's a washer that goes in between the shock tower and the control arm. Okay? So the screw goes into the back of the shock tower. Oop, there it is. Back of the shock tower. And bites into the control arm, but there's a washer in between the control arm and the shock tower. Little bitty thin guy. They come as part of the kit. They always give you extras. Yada yada. It's a wonderful life. Take this. Obviously, you're gonna run this down. I did not put Loctite on. I only run this car under controlled circumstances. I don't have to worry about any of it being lost. And ultimately, if it does get lost, I will find it again. So you see there, you see how it's turning, it's engaging, we've got movement. So ultimately, that's just the only repair that I had on that. These cars will crack and split the plastic components. Ultimately, you can break these gearbox mounts where they are. If you put a lot of jumping stress on these cars, they do not take jumps very well at all. I have found out of everything that I've done with Tamiya, the combination of a good motor control. This one is their basic stock one. I've added a heat sink off of a Tekin. I've put in some capacitors for 10 or 12 bucks, and obviously a decent Dean's connector. These will work only if they're geared properly, and only if you do not do a bunch of heavy load. Like it cannot drag a heavy machine. This Ford up here is the only thing that was any heavier than this that one of those could drag, and I don't believe that it would do it for long. A 17.5 turn motor, probably about the fastest that you really want to run. This one's got a 16 turn in it, and I found that one is really blissful, but it can create some problems as far as gear wear. If everything's not set up real correct, the 16 turn does actually wear it a little bit faster. It'll loosen things up a little bit more. It is a significant performance difference. But as far as finding Shangri-La in a rally car, this one is based on the XV01 chassis. I have a whole video series on them, and I've got the transmission rebuild coming, as well as plastic bead locks for it. So, but this one, being the TA02 series, it's much older design, so it's much less rugged. It does not take the hits as well as the XV does, although it's shaft driven. So I feel like ultimately it's been a more reliable chassis and great for off-road. It's great fun off-road. So it's perfect combination for me. I like this Tekin Redline. I think it's a Gen 2. It's a sealed unit, brushless with a sensor. I like a Tactic radio. They're definitely solid. Tactic servo. I like it. I'm not going to say it's the best I have, but as far as getting that kit going and running quickly, the kit comes with the motor control and a generic silver can brushed motor. Why not buy one of these? The radio you have to buy, and matching it up with the servo doesn't ever hurt. Tactic's not a bad brand. As a matter of fact, I think my Yeti came with one. So they're fairly heavy duty. You can see from the alignment angles that this car has got a different, how they're kicked in, right? Look at the way the position of the arms is. They've actually flipped the arms. Let me find you an example. All right. Do you see what I mean? To shorten the wheelbase, whoop, you see the rear arms, how these are coming back. They're back that way. And then over here, these being flipped, it actually shoves the the tire is the wheelbase length, but ultimately you can see the gearbox design. You see what I mean? So I could take parts off of this car and put them right into this one and vice versa. So what I'm going to do next, and the chassis is about to show up. It's actually just a carbon fiber chassis from Jazz Rider. What I'm going to do is either upgrade this chassis, or I'm going to build one from scratch for the other 037 body that I have. So that I'll have this one in stock trim, which may end up getting like the Martini body, now that I know everything's dialed in and it works good. And then build the other chassis for hardcore rally that I can use this body for. So ultimately, this one's going to be one to watch because I've got a lot of upgrade capability to do with it, and I've got a lot of experience with this chassis. Very happy with it. And this kit, my God, it's amazing to get the value for money you get in one of these kits is pretty incredible, because remember, anywhere in the rock crawling community, these hard body kits are like $150, $200 and up. So you get this with the kit, and you get all the headlights, the interior windows, the driver passenger combo. You get a lot of value with this kit. Also, if you're into these, do not take this bumper off. You want to know why you don't take that bumper off? You just leave it right there, leave it alone. Oops. Oops. Oh, what did you hit? Well, you just went for some rally and oh, gee whiz. So that right there is kind of a basic rundown and a fix-it on the generals of this TA02 SW037. It's got the longest name, just like a copier. It's like a photocopier. But yeah, it's a really great car, and that's kind of some of the usual stuff that goes on with it. I think right now we can switch into a different one. I've kind of wanted to get this thing done. I've got an axle shaft broken here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take it apart right here and slide this whole assembly out. I have not upgraded the lower arms on this, which is technically about the only piece that I have left to upgrade on this truck. This was one of my first real project vehicles. So you got your big cross pin. Oh, and there you go. You see? It's a one-sided dog bone. I'm going to take this out. And there's the head of the dog bone. They're actually split around a shaft centered in the middle. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but you see how it's actually like goes around everything. Ah, there you go. It's still stuck. So there you have it. Broken axle shaft goes on the wall of shame over here. I have tons of stuff on the wall of shame you don't even know. Look at this little guy. You see this? This whole nitromethane motor. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Oh, it doesn't like that. But it still moves, mostly. Anyway, I roached that within like 5 minutes of owning it. You think I can make this nitro adjust correctly? Ah, sure. Be easy. Okay, so here's how your dog bones show up. Right? What you're going to do is buy parts bags for Tamiya. And you maniacs are lucky right now because honestly, in the real world game of things, you would not catch me giving away the who, what, when, where, and why of who I do business with and how I go about finding this stuff. Because to be honest with you, some of this stuff is genuinely getting harder and harder to get a hold of sometimes. As the field gets bigger, they made this design in like 74. This truck was like from the 90s or 80s. So, you know what I'm saying? Like some of this stuff, if it's going to get hard to find, well, I just hope it never does. But luckily, they're still making parts, that sort of thing. Why does this this truck break axle heads off? It's just simply shear angle related. I put too much lift on it to clear these super swampers. Or, well, they're knockoffs. They're not super swampers. I want to state that very clearly. I have no intention of getting sued. These are extremely cheap Chinese knockoffs of a super swamper. All right. Let's see there. There you go. Now, see how they're turning? Oh, you'll notice that even bead locks fail to keep the bead on every once in a while. But that's okay, because very shortly, my gorgeous little Toyota is going to be the recipient of these all aluminum bead locks from my Lancia. Why? This thing likes to eat transmissions and gears. Mostly it's because it's got a really powerful motor, and I've added way too much weight. There's so much unsprung weight to this thing that this vehicle weighs as much as the truck does, if not more. So I am going to switch out to these plastic bead locks, which weigh less, but still do the same job, have the same fitment, and take my chrome. These are bead locks too, but I'm taking these and probably applying them to something else in the rally world of things. But who knows? Always good to have a set of extra bead locks, you know? So anyway, that is the repair done on that guy. That's all I had to do. I do have to tell you, when you're getting into the upgrades, stuff like this chassis kit, if you can see the logo kind of down here, it's MB Racing, EMBY Racing. They're in the Republic of Czechoslovakia, I believe. And Mike, the guy that does this, is incredible. He worked with me to develop shock towers that were taller for this kit. So the regular carbon fiber towers that you get for this model, you can order taller ones from MB Racing. So you can get us the same jacked up look, because these are obviously extremely large tires for this series. They're not quite as big as a full rock crawler. Okay. So that's the difference between full rock crawler with a 2.2-inch rim and like the biggest 1.9-inch tire that I've found is these. But usually your 1.9-inch rims are like a 95 to 115. You see how they're a lot bigger than the Ford? So these are much, and they're much squishier too. You can see them squishing down. They're not, you see, they squish and all the air comes out of them and they just bunch up. But they come back. come back pretty quick. So yeah, MB Racing makes that chassis. You can find them on eBay as well. But it's a really cool upgrade kit. I'd like to do it again on another truck. I kind of like to do it on that Ford. Let me see. Who else do I have in that class? Other than the one that I'm about to build over there, the Ford, the Toyota, the Lancia are all the same chassis, along with this guy. Read them and weep, folks. Any of you got a Causey? Huh? Anybody got a Cosworth? That's right, it's a Sierra Cosworth, not just an Escort Cosworth. And you'll notice whose Cosworth it is. Oh, that's right. Now, my graphics is way different than what his were on the running side of things, because when I first got this body, it came with these graphics on it. You see how these are distinctively Australian? Yeah, that's where this body came from. Funny story, that's where the chassis came from too, but the chassis actually showed up as that. Nice little pretty Nissan Skyline. So it's a TA01 or 02, whichever one you want to call it. I believe in 01. And then I bought the body from Australia for the Cosworth and had to do some graphical interpretation, if you will, before I was able to find the Colin McRae livery in Britain. And I mean, who else would have it? You know. This one, as you can see up top, has the steering upgrade. RC Jazz or Jazz RC or Jazz Rider. When you look on eBay and you see these things, that's a company to order from. These dudes have amazing service, very fast shipping. Compared to other things from Asia, these dudes are on it. Excuse me. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, that's right. I got one of those $15 El Cheapo servos. This one was a junkyard dog. Because I was eventually, it had been, when I first set it up, I had set it up as a truck, as a Baja truck. You see? But, because I took this body and immediately to this chassis. Let's see here. There you go. Hey, goes right on. Oh, sorry. You're getting horrible camera angles out of me. Goes right on, fits right on. Nissan Skyline. Oopsie. Look at what we did to something that cannot be replaced. I did not know this was like the most rare Skyline body of all. Okay, so forgive me on that one. I would have never chopped into this thing had I known that. But as you can see, these things can be kind of adapted to whatever you want. So I wanted a Causey, and since it's a road car, it was really kind of a nightmare terror kind of a racing car. Really did well in all the racing. I thought I'd go a little bit different direction and get some gold rims and go rally. As you can see, Hobby Star 3000 kV. I don't talk about it, I be about it. It's a Castle Sidewinder version 3, version 4. Who knows such things? I don't really care. Shorten it up. I noticed when you shorten up the power wires, kind of seems to work pretty well. But yeah, this one is one of my favorite rally cars. But you see, if you can notice, oh man, I wish the friggin' resolution on this thing was better. There's a crack right there. I don't know if you can see it or not. You might be able to see a whiff of it, but this stuff gets impacted and these little plastic pieces crack. So these shock towers here, 12 or 13 bucks a piece for the aluminum ones. Carbon fiber chassis upgrade from Jazz Rider was about 35 bucks delivered. And it comes with carbon fiber shock towers, carbon fiber lower deck, carbon fiber upper deck. And I believe maybe some mounting hardware to get it in place. So ultimately, the one that I have coming, I'm building an entirely new vehicle to put another Lancia in the fleet, because that's how Lancia does things. They don't just hit you with like crazy Italian technology. They send like a literal fleet of cars to race against you. So if they're getting points, they're getting like all the points. And that's just me. I'm going to do that. So, anywho, that is the, let's see, this is the last one that I put together in the TA series, as far as the TA 02s. But as far as performance-wise, this car is freaking fantastic. It drives and handles and does everything I want it to do, and it looks that freaking good doing it. I don't care what anybody says. It may be pretty roughed up, but this body's several years old. It's had tons of bashing done to it, and it's so much fun. So I would definitely suggest one of these kits if you're looking to get into a massively deep rabbit hole. If you're looking for that sort of thing, Tamiya has got it on offer. Let me see. You guys are wondering, what do I mean when I'm talking about like I've got the parts? Gear differential for the XV01. It's a drive shaft and drive shaft cups for my 037. We're not even delved into the deep dark holes yet here. Oh wait, this is not even the, this is the XV01 chamber. Check this out. Pair of spools off of TRF cars, because we took both of the TRF chassis, a 416 and a 417, and put ball differentials in both ends. Well, both ends of this one have got ball differentials. This one's got a gear diff in the front. And if you want to know how to cure understeer and oversteer on one of these cars, if you want to remove those things, they build the car to have understeer in it, because you and your reaction time aren't quick enough for its reaction time. So when you turn the wheel, it turns like it's really turning, and you react poorly and send the car into a spin or a wall. So they put a spool in the front so that when you turn, it pushes and doesn't turn as sharply. If you really want to have car control over one of these cars, put a gear diff in the front and a ball diff in the rear, or a ball diff in both ends, or gear diffs in both ends, and you will have actual car control at a radio control 4-wheel drive level, like 10th scale. So here we have this. All right. That was the wrong bin, as it turns out. Aha. Here we go. So you see, I've got another chassis waiting in the TA series. This is the chassis that came off of my Toyota. I have a fresh, brand new set of rally rims and tires. This came off of, well, just parts. Parts, actually. These would go to the Subaru, I think, the Subaru Impreza Rally. But I now have, I believe, all of the ball diff parts and all of the gear differential parts because I also have one of these. Yeah, look at that. What do you got? That's right. So this being the setup, what I'm going to do is probably end up with a rally car and then a carbon fiber chassis that I turn into a road car, now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't have a Ferrari. I had a Ferrari. I blew it apart, overpowering the chassis, and I'm really mad at myself still over it. I'm hurt and offended and a little bit hurt. So what I'd like to do is I found a 355 Ferrari body, and I'd like to build a TA02, either SW or just a W, which is short, wide, or wide. Whatever the wheelbase has to be for that Ferrari 355, I would like to have a carbon fiber edition with a Ferrari body. So I don't know. That'll be, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it'll be 3 rally cars, 2 Baja trucks, and a Ferrari in the TA02 series. You know, I feel like we touched some good ground. I'm happy with this live stream. I'm happy to be getting back out into the garage. I'm so excited about getting into some of this stuff. I think one of the next things I might do is get into this, but I've got to get some errors corrected here, people. I have some mistakes to admit to you. As you can see, this is going to be a Porsche. Look at the sexy that this may actually turn out to be. Okay? You're talking a Golf RSR Porsche, right? Except I'm an idiot, and look at the paint. Look at how screwed up the paint is. And when I was trying to cut exhaust gaps, look at that horror show. Who would do that to one of these cars? I would. Because I went to the Helen Keller Academy of Automotive whatever and bodywork. So blind people taught me, apparently. But I have some adjustments and adaptations. I've got to get clearance right here. See how the wheel well's back here? It's because of the freaking gap that I had to. The wheelbase on this body was not exactly set for a TRF car. So you can see that. It deflects. Yeah. So as it deflects, it touches the body, and that's not a good thing. But we got to clearance that out a little bit, and I think on my control arms and the knuckles, I have to, well, not the, well, the upper control ball end, upper outer ball end, which is basically the outer ball end on the control arm is rubbing the wheel. So I need to clearance the top of that. And then obviously this front portion of the fender, I got to clearance that out. And then the knuckle is rubbing just slightly. What's super confusing is that it uses the same exact parts as this one, and this one rubs all over the damn place. I can't get the wheelbase right or the track width right to run that Skyline body on it. So that's going to be yet another repair that I have to do. That's like, as you're building it, you're modifying it into place. Just a little bit of massage work, I guess. You know, I could probably sit down and get a little bit familiar. This side is just a tiny little hair out. So what I'm going to do is here. And of course, cutting the plastic after you've painted it is literally the quickest way to piss off your fresh paint and get it to chip on you. Which makes your custom-made Gulf oil Superfly paint job, all the more better. It really does. Just chip it away, make it broken looking and vintage, you know. Give it that worn look before it's ever been on the road. I find it easier to deal with accidents later if you create them right up front. Ah, crap. Curved pliers, or curved scissors. Curved pliers. What the fuck am I talking about? All right. Real world terms, to get these things to stabilize, you want to have them as wide as humanly possible. Okay? Like literally as wide as you can get them, which is why the back end is stuck way out. Unfortunately, when you're talking about turning the tire, it's actually sweeping out in this giant ass arc, so that even when you've got clearance on the back side of things, you think it can still contact. So all right, that side seems to be clearing pretty good. This side needs to be trimmed. All right, let's see what that does. It's just a little bit of a, you got to touch it up and go, touch it up and go. You can't sit there and dwell on the shit too long. Again, I am not the person to contact if you think that you're like, you want to be a collector and you want to leave it in all this pristine condition and you want to know, oh, well, what does it affect the value? Hey, buddy, you took it out of the box, you started to build it, the value went to 0. How's that sound? Like, you ain't getting more than $200 back out of this thing, and I don't care how much money you put into it. You want to know why I know that? How do I know that, viewers? How do I know so much? Why am I such a smartass about it? Because I shop on eBay. You see the chassis that I'm working on? Some poor somebody out there had to pay $800 for the chassis before it had electronics on, because it's a TRF car. Somebody had to do the same thing with this. Do you know where I got these from? From eBay. That's right, kids. You've been paying attention. Both of these chassis were delivered to me for $235. One of them had McLaren racing gear in it with the hobby wing, whatever the hell this is, XR10, XR80. Yep, XR10. This is like racing gear. Very expensive stuff. I paid for 2 of them on one auction, won the auction, and basically paid $100 a piece for them. One of them was damn near ready to drive. Had the steering servo, had the motor control, all of it. It even came with spare parts, like a box full of spare parts. This is the most premium grade stuff you can get, and you're paying pennies on the dollar for it when it's used. As it gets more popular, maybe you don't run into deals like that so often, but it's good to pay attention for them. What my whole point is that when you open this stuff up, it becomes the same exact thing as buying a hot rod car and modifying it. If it's a true collector's item, it will arrive to you in such a way that you will never change the way from it arriving to you. You get what I'm saying? Like, you ain't taking it out of the box. You're not going to unwrap it out of the paper. You're not even going to look at it very hard. It definitely doesn't live in the sunlight. Oh, mama. Oh. Right there, we're still having that issue. Right in the corner pocket where the bumper dips in, it's actually carving into too much space where the tire has to live. And yet again, we're coming from a hard outside angle. And we're opening up the wheel well. Bing. Because to be honest with you, when this thing's winging past you at 30, 35 miles an hour, I can't tell what the wheel wells look like. What I can tell is when I'm turning and it grabs a hold of the damn car or the tire. That's when Suck City happens. Uh-oh. That's not good to lose. And yes, this is a lot of modification. I'm not necessarily happy about this. But what are we going to do, kids? It's still touching on the other side, but now it isn't on this side. Oh, it's a barely too. It's a little bitty barely. You're going to want to also remember that getting into things as far as like how far the suspension compresses is something that you need to pay attention to as well, especially when you're carving this stuff off. Give it room to compress the suspension and turn, because as you're taking a high-speed turn, it is compressing. It doesn't have to be all the way compressed, otherwise you're going to get some issues. But under normal circumstances, a bit of compression or just squeezing the body, you're squeezing in like this, pushing down and in to pinch. You see what I'm saying? So I can hang the whole thing from my fingertips, set down, pinch in, and then turn. You see? Way the fuck back over there. That little son of a bitch is kicking my ass. All right. So that gets me, there it is. Excellent. Gets me just enough front room clearance up. I ain't gonna lie to you, kids. That's not the prettiest looking wheel well you've ever seen. And neither is this one. But what it does, it doesn't touch the body now. That's what I care about. That's really all I care about. I care about that up to the point where I can get some of this sexiness down on here. You see? Golf stickers. Cha-ching. And I might just do a golf there and a golf on the side. I don't even know. I might do it just right here. Wing! And then have them on the sides. Maybe back here. Maybe on the doors. I don't know. I don't know. I might have to get some more of these golf stickers coming. They were like $1 or $2 a piece. That's just something you have to be a little bit creative about. And I got to do something about this. This stands out like a dick on a fish. You understand what I'm saying? If you saw a fish swimming by with a big old dick hanging off of it, that's what this is in the plastic car body world. Ooh, it's swimming by. Look at the big dick hanging off it. Look at this. This is terrible. I don't know how the hell I did that. by being stupid mostly. Stupid and impatient. But I've got my Porsche lined out, so now I can take, oh hell, I got to take a Dremel now. Isn't that what you always use for body work? A Dremel? And I got to sand out because the cracks in this car are so deep. I have to get in here and sand out all these chunks and pieces. So I will be doing that in a very short order on the next stream, I believe. So nice to see you again. It's glad to be out in the garage, and you will be seeing much more of this.